Hey chess kids, welcome back to YouTube land, and today I want to show you my favorite game from my favorite chess player of all time. You might know it if you've watched any of my live streams. His name is David Bronstein. He never quite became world champion, but he got really close, and he was one of the most creative players of all time. Here, he was white. He's on the attack. He's threatening the queen, and black says, hey, I found a tactic. I'm going to beat David Bronstein. Queen to c7. Now, what does that do? It double attacks the bishop, but it also guards c5. So when Bronstein saves the bishop, as he did in the game, bishop c5, and it looks like, wait, FunMasterMike, why are you showing me a loss? It's not a loss. It's actually an intentional sacrifice, because when this bishop goes off on its journey to win the rook, it abandons the king. And look at those juicy, juicy dark squares. They're going to be super unprotected when the bishop gets to g1. So Bronstein just calmly moves his queen over. Black maybe thinks he's getting a free rook, but here comes the pain. First move for Bronstein was to play d6. The snowplow moves forward, and now I don't think I've seen another game in chess history with such domination of the dark squares. Which is funny, because black still has a dark squared bishop. But in any case, the queen might come here, the bishop might come here, the queen might come around this way, the knight might hop into the fun. Let's see how this one works out. First of all, the queen slides backward, and it looks like maybe she's trying to come to f5 and trade queens or something, but king to e2. Now, if you try to play your queen to f5, I'll trade queens, take your bishop, and if you can visualize all that after all those moves, bishop to f6 would be a discovered checkmate. Even without the queens, the dark squares go down. So after the king moves to e2, which is just a fantastic move, by the way, you could castle, but the king is actually pretty safe on e2. Bishop runs back to c5, and now black is up an entire rook. But you know what? Look at the extra rook. Not exactly very useful right now. And white hops in more pieces to the attack. Knight to e4. You can see where the knight's going. The knight's going to go to f6. Then the queen's going to hop over to the h-file, and maybe we'll mate on the light square. Ooh, secret ending. Knight on 8 to d7. And of course, you don't want to trade this knight for this knight. So, good attackers, they always get all their dudes in the attack. Rook to c1, pinning the bishop. Now, I guess black didn't have a very productive move in this position. If you try to push this pawn, I don't know, maybe the snowplow is going to keep going. So queen to c6, and one of black's pieces is overworked. It's this knight. This knight's trying to guard the bishop. It's trying to guard the f6 square. And now Bronstein says, rooks? I don't need any rooks. Rook takes bishop, distracting the black knight. And after knight takes, white's out of rooks, but he's not out of minor pieces. Knight to f6 check, and the game is almost over already. If your king moves, which it did, queen to h4, threatening mate. And this position is pretty desperate. Now black gives a check. If you're white here, you need to find the best place for your king to not allow the checks to continue. You know what? If your king moves here, or if your king moves here, there might be a check with the queen or a check with the knight. If your king moves here, also the knight could take the bishop. If your king moves here, the knight could give a check. Anyway, the point is, there's a lot of bad king moves, but what does Bronstein do? King to e3. It looks like he's playing King of the Hill. If you guys don't know that game, well, it's a silly chess game where if you get your king to the center, you win. But no, he was playing regular chess. And amazingly, there's no useful checks with the king on e3, because the bishop guards a lot of the knight checks, and the queen, well, she just doesn't have any checks. So black tries h5. Don't forget, there was a mate threat. And white simply sacrifices. If you take that knight, you're going to get mated. And things were so desperate for black, he actually sacrificed his queen just to stay alive, because that allows the knight to come here, and Bronstein puts his king on d4. The knight gives check on e6, and the king takes on d5. I love this game. Okay, finally, he gets rid of the bishop, which means there's not going to be a mate just yet. But after knight f6 check to save the knight, and then queen takes, it is clearly winning for white. Just want to show you one or two more moves. After the rook slides over, e6, the snowplow keeps going, and after takes, the king takes back. The king is a fighting piece. A queen and a knight are pretty much always better than two rooks, plus there's a strong attack on the king, plus there's a pawn on the 6th rank, and white went on to win in about 8 more moves. A fantastic idea by David Bronstein, giving away both rooks and charging his king to the center. That is my favorite game from my favorite chess player of all time.